I'm extremely excited by the world of Substack, which has just become more or less where I live, actually. Apart from in my head, I also live in Substack. And I've been meeting incredible people like you who really role model how to get this ship out of dock, really. Even though I've been banging champagne bottles on ships for 68 years. It's something I've never thought of saying before. It's the camera that does this to me.
I know. That's what I like about it. There's something about the intensity of the camera and live. It does something amazing. I'm completely addicted to live conversations. I feel like there's a certain something that happens in them that people just open. So carry on. You've been banging the champagne bottle. What you mean in terms of writing? Like
in terms of writing, there's such a community here. When I first joined, I had all my settings completely wrong. And Wendy Varley, who I'd never met in a million years, I think I probably read her magazines when I was a teenager, if I could smuggle them in, because my mother thought they were pornography.
Just 17, we should say.
Yeah. But she rang me up and we were on the phone for about 2 hours. She even gave me time to turn something off on the stove and come back. Well, she showed me what I'd been doing wrong with the settings. And then the other day, I pressed all the wrong buttons, and Margaret Bennett, who I follow, she sent me a private message and said, do this and that. And everywhere else in the world is dog eat dog, and I want that, and why have you got a bigger whatnot than I've got? But here, it's the most fantastic sharing going on.
And what do you think it is? What's the magic sauce that has made a Substack that? Because that's exactly my experience as well, and so many other people I know.
Well, I think probably I avoid some of the things that make it a bit Twitter-like. Okay. I deliberately don't read nasty stuff.
Do you see nasty stuff then? Because I don't even.
When I say nasty stuff, I don't really mean nasty. I mean things I can do absolutely nothing about, like issues to do with Trump, which I feel we've just got to wait till the man explodes. Or something, so what actually I think what's happening is it's like you start your Substack and then it's a magnet for people who have great ideas, who want to share them. And for me, since writing is simply about being, I think we find ourselves in words, and often not in the first set of words we're ever given. I think there's a lot of becoming going on. Nobody seems to say, oh, I'm there. I've made it. This is me. I'm done. Now, how can I help? There's no one like that. People are coming with very open hearts, I think. Mm. I don't know. It's an American website, so probably wrong.
Well, yeah, although Hamish isn't American, I think he's from New Zealand. Or is
okay.
But there's something in the way they've designed it. I was thinking about it this morning when I wrote my obsessive diary. I don't know what it is, but your experience is exactly reflected in my experience. There's something magic that happens here. Somebody else said to me, because I don't know how many Substackers you've met in face-to-face in the flesh, but what I found with an awful lot of people, and I found it with you, although we now discover we do have a connection.
Yes.
Is that because in this place, we publish, those of us who publish sort of memoir, kind of personal essay, that, or even stuff that we're really fascinated by, or even fiction, there's a very intimate relationship between me, the writer, and whoever happens to be reading it. And I never know who's reading it. But so it means that there's a kind of shortcut. So when I've met people, I've made friends on Substack, and then we've arranged to meet and I've met them, we're immediately in, as if we've known each other for 1,000 years. It cuts out so much, of all the brambles you have to get through in the normal kind of moors of social niceties. Not that I've ever stuck to social niceties, and I think neither of you, but you know what I mean.
Sometimes I could have done with being a bit more socially nice. I do know what you mean. And I first came to Substack through Clover Stroud. I was on one of her memoir writing courses.
Right.
So already we're into a very intimate space where in memoir you're daring. I mean, I often joke about my memoir and say I can't publish it until my kids are dead. Because, people say they're waiting for their parents to die. Of course, I don't mean that. But I've actually moved. So it's through Clover that I found this great intimacy here. And in her writing, she's so incredibly open, isn't she? And daring.
Yeah.
And she sort of dares me, go on, pretend that no one you know will ever read it while you're writing. Right. And that helped.
Yeah.
And actually, that is a large. I have moved on a bit from memoir. I felt I was almost trauma dumping left, right, and centre, rather than dealing with my own private issues in private. But I worked a lot of stuff out on paper, which I perhaps could have kept to myself. But these same issues are there with Rivering. Rivering is examining that. I think you probably know it too, given the Rances are our common link. That society we came from in Streatley-on-Thames was incredibly locked down. Yeah. There was so much front to be kept and so much of life going on. And we kids knew it was going on. We discovered people, in embraces they shouldn't have been in, or all the things that were forbidden were going on. So I'm drifting now.
Well, I'm obsessed, as you probably know, with the English front, that presentation, what's presented and what's going on under the surface. And I'm currently also obsessed and constantly reading a sort of mid-20th century women writers who were also writing very, very well. And that's globally Shirley Jackson. I'm reading Ruth Franklin's brilliant biography, A Rather Haunted Life, about Shirley Jackson. Anyone who knows me well knows that oh God, her name has gone completely out of my head.
It'll come back.
Elizabeth Taylor is absolutely one of my heroes. I don't know if you've read Angel or anything else she's written, but she is my go-to. So yeah, Dorothy Sayre, the Cambridge Ladies Dining Society, and Kennedy Smith has just done a great thing on Dorothy Sayre. So any of those fronts, those kind of polite society fronts, and what lies beneath, obsesses me. And although I grew up in a kind of, sort of aristocratic, it was also very bohemian. And I think Streatley, where you were, and the Rances was a perfect presentation of that. Yeah. And those who could see,
it was, yeah, there, I mean, many of the people who were quite, weren't about, it was a moment when a lot of people were breaking rules. Yeah. When I describe life as I lived it at 16 to 16-year-olds now, they're completely horrified. There was nobody keeping an eye. I mean, the very fact that my parents went on holiday and I had sex with the trainee art teacher and took LSD when I was 16. And then they came back and they said,
laugh now.
"You have a lovely time, darling. How have you been? Has everything been all right?" Yeah, I think so. I feel a bit different, but yeah, it's all right. Yeah, there was.
How do you feel about that now? I mean, you've got a daughter, haven't you? Because we can laugh and go wild, but how do you actually feel about that now? When you look back at your 16-year-old self and you did those two things, what do you think? How do you feel about it now?
Quite. I see it actually. I see what happened in truth between the ages of 11 and 17 when I joined the cult, Rajneesh cult, as a period of great neglect in terms of my parenting. Yeah. I can't say I've been any better as a parent. I dreamt I would be, but I also hadn't dealt with what Rajneesh had done to me, and then came out of that and thought, I'll have a happy family. That's what I'll do. I'll move into a terraced house and I'll have a happy family. And obviously that won't work if you've just come out of
India at the
in India. I was first of all, I was in England and then I was in India. And
in Rishikesh, is that where?
No, I was in a place called Tushita in England. And in Pune, in India, there was a big centre, an ashram.
I've been Yeah, I've been there. Have you seen Wild Wild Country?
Have
Do you know?
I? Yes, I've
Yes.
seen that. But more recently, the children of the cult, who were a couple of years younger than me, or 4 years younger than me, or 5 years younger than me, most recently made a brilliant two-part documentary about
Oh,
the children of the cult. I think it's called Children of the Cult, edited and supported by Lily Dunn, who's one of my favorite memoirists. And that again, that just
could you link that? Can you link that on one of your posts so we can all watch it?
yes, I will link it. In fact, I've got two posts I wrote about it at the time, and I'll do that again afterwards. I found it very what they call triggering now.
I'm sure. Weirdly, and this is a side issue because I want to know more about it. Before my mum died, a couple of years before, I was over at her cottage and there was a new carer there. And within about 30 seconds, we discovered that she was part of, she was Sannyasin, and she was out in the American just before the entire thing went belly up. She
Mm.
was there. And she had to be sneaked out. I can't remember the name of the woman, but she had to be sneaked out in the well of a jeep under the eyes of whatever the who was the main woman who sort of
Sheila,
Sheila, yeah, under the sneaking away from Sheila extraordinarily, and then she said that she was at, or was it? Oh, maybe it was so funny. I forget. Maybe it was me, but I was at the hugging mum. Do you know the hugging mama? She's called Amachi,
no,
and Sheila. Oh, she does. She hugs. She's the hugging saint. She's always at Ali Pali. And Sheila was there in the queue.
bloody hell.
It's really wild. So tell me, how long were you sannyasam?
Only until I was 25. So 7 years, 18 to 25.
That's a long time though. You didn't go out to America.
I didn't go to America. I was very, very fortunate, as I see it now, in that I'd been very highly regarded by the ashramites. I'd climbed up this sort of non-existent hierarchy, and they'd asked me to do two things which I said no to. And there was one word that was banned by the organization, and that was no. So I'd lost favor, and then they held me back for quite some time. I couldn't get out of India for about 4 months after Bhagwan had gone.
You
Uh,
were there during his. Oh no, so you were there when he left.
I
For,
was there when he left. I knew he was going. I was part of the sort of plot to get him out. And then they sent me to England on the way to Oregon. But on the aeroplane on the way back, I had the first 8 hours I'd had on my own for about, a good 3 years. We did everything together, including the toilets had no doors.
yeah.
And it was in that space on an aeroplane, 8 hours, Qantas flight, very nice. I was lying down on my own.
Oh,
I thought, kind of woke up. I thought, why do I think it's okay that all my friends have been sterilized? Why are they asking me to get involved in guns and weaponry? I'm not going, I'm not going, I'm not going
wow.
to America. I'm going to my sister's. And I went to my sister's. She's 15 years older than me. She was sort of settled and had a flat in London. And I went there and she opened the door and she said, "Oh, you're back. Oh, we've been so worried. We've been so worried. Oh, come in, come in, come in." And she kind of sorted me out. She let me wear her clothes to go to an interview because I only had orange rags.
Yeah.
She introduced me to some friends who wanted someone to work for them. And slowly, slowly, I kind of got back to accepting
She,
that.
she hadn't seen you for 7 years.
No, she'd seen me. I
Oh,
must have seen her before I went finally to live in India, I thought forever and ever. It must have been a farewell the year before. But they hadn't been allowed to. I mean, my parents had sent people out to India to take me out to dinner, but I'd said I was too busy. I couldn't possibly take half an hour off. So I was well immersed. Um, and I quite often forget it as part of my life now. It's such a long, long time ago. And it was really, I was a grown up when I got involved. I was 18. But now I don't think 18, especially with this completely neglectful, fantastic childhood running around up and down hills, taking drugs and swimming in the river. I wasn't really prepared for life itself.
what made you ripe? for sannyasin then, do you think, to be taken?
I was
Well,
desperate for meaning. All of this, the difference between what you say and what you feel,
yeah.
uh, had made me feel a very, very lonely person as a child. I really felt that everything I was taught didn't tie up, nothing tied up. I couldn't get a sense of the reason for anything in life. I've always wanted to know why. Why is that happening? What do you mean? And people used to say, you ask far too many questions. Why don't you just accept it as it is? You worry, you worry. Why do you have to analyze everything? And they still say that. It's sort of, Cherry, can you just? And no, I can't
No.
just. I've
Yeah.
never been able to just.
Mm.
Mm.
Good.
And writing, of course, was banned by the ashram. And then writing's, and I know that all of you guys write like stink, even though you've got children. I was doing quite a number of jobs and definitely not writing, except in journals, for a long time until I finally went back to education when I was about 40 after a disastrous attempt at being married. And then that was it then. Words and writing became my life.
And the reckoning of that experience, the Sannyasin Bhagwan experience, when did you begin to reckon it, and how long did it take to reckon it? Or are you still reckoning it now?
Still reckoning it. Someone asked me recently why I couldn't say that Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh was a charlatan, the man in charge of the thing. I could blame all the women who he handed control over to, and some of the men. But I still had it in my head that he was divine and therefore exempt. And I think it was only last month that I was writing about that experience. And, you know, actually, it was all in his name and he is to blame. And he was truly a wrong 'un. And he was abusing those of us who were his mediums for his energy. We thought it was something special, but it wasn't. It was just his sexual kicks.
Yeah.
Nothing special at all.
Yeah.
So now I would say it's taking me 58 years. How old am I? 50 years. Well, 45 years to process what that was. And also, I nearly died recently, and that helped sort of hurry things along.
I wanted to ask you about that. Is this the sepsis?
Yeah, and I had sepsis, which was incredibly dramatic and awful.
Talk me through it.
I got pneumonia actually, and I'd been attempting to get some form of response from a doctor on the phone, and eventually, fortunately, I rang a couple of people. One of them was my daughter, and one of them was a friend, and sounded like a madwoman. And very, very fortunately, they both rang my brother at the same time, and he and his wife came and rescued me. They sort of pushed me into their car and delivered me to eventually the Oxford hospital services. So I was very, very fortunate to be in intensive care in the John Radcliffe because they're magnificent and they saved my life. But I was in a coma for about 3 weeks. And in that coma, I know it's drug induced because I now understand the drugs they give you in an induced coma.
Yeah.
But I was actually in purgatory. It was the most extraordinary, horrific experience. But I kind of met everybody that I'd ever blamed for my misfortunes and had conversations in this altered state with people I'd been involved with who it's very easy to find blame for the people I've been involved with who did me harm, but I'd never actually taken account of my side in it and my lust for adrenaline and excitement and how I would throw myself into a fight rather than live a dull existence. So that process of being absolutely in a different zone.
Yeah.
I thought I was in an airport hangar. I thought I'd been taken hostage. I thought I'd been gagged because I had all of this stuff. I wasn't there. That for me also gave me a sense of being reborn because everyone expected me to die. I thought, fuck, I better use this life properly now then. Better not screw up again. So that in itself.
What was your first screw up then?
Sorry? Oh,
Well,
well,
again, what do you mean by that?
and then I married a man who wasn't capable really of holding a relationship together and was manic depressive, untreated, and extremely violent when angry, unpredictably so. Not like he wasn't like a man who went out and got drunk and then punched you in the face. And then beyond that, I was released to be a single parent with 2 children and entered into quite a number of inappropriate relationships, or at least perhaps they might have been appropriate, but I wasn't ready for them. And finally, in the year 2000, I married an Irish man who was absolutely barking, but very exciting. His family were very exciting. And he died by suicide after a year on our wedding anniversary. So they're like normal human mistakes, I suppose, but I've been incredibly hard on myself for making them because I was supposed to be being a good parent and my children were witnessing disastrous relationships enacted out in front of them. And I carry a lot of guilt for that. I can't shake off.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe shouldn't shake it off. I think I can say that I now know I would do things differently, but I am 68. And I think that by the time you get to 68, you kind of had a go at doing life and making lots of mistakes. And of course we do it differently. Of course we do it differently.
Can we go back to that hangar again? That's fascinating. So as far as you were concerned, you were in a hangar, and were these people who you had blamed coming in one by one to have one-to-one conversations with you? And did each of those conversations result in the same outcome, or were they all slightly different? Can you tell me more about that?
They weren't complete conversations. They were the beginnings of conversations.
Okay.
But for instance, there was one, when I came out of the coma, my son handed me this beautiful notebook that a very kind person had sent me. And I said, "Oh, I don't want that. She's dangerous." And he said, "Mum, what do you mean? What do you mean?" And in the coma, I'd been under the impression that she'd been the one attaching electrodes to my head. And she'd been attempting to steal my personality. And so I realized that there were issues in our relationship, whose name I'm not mentioning, and that we needed to resolve somehow beyond the coma. Now I'm still alive. So we're doing that. Other things were impossible because the people have died. My first husband died, but I found a point of forgiveness for both of us, of me and of him, in that he sort of visited me in the coma, asked me for forgiveness, and was very able to give it. And then I asked him to forgive me, and he was able to do that. I mean, I know it's imaginary, but it's very real. In fact, that's my issue with life. I can't distinguish the real from the imaginary. I can't tell where that line is.
Do you perceive one to be more real than the other then, or at least if I can give you my 2 pence worth and you can respond
please.
to it? Sure. So my experience is, and this is something that Chloe and I have been talking about quite a lot, is there are 3 realms basically available to all human beings in this iteration here we are now. There's the material, we're talking you and I. There's the imaginary, which tends to just be given to children and you can't have it once you're adolescent. And then there's the sacred, which is whatever your faith is. Now, as far as I'm concerned, all 3 of those bear equal weight. They are of equal reality and they're equally available to all people. And not only that, but engaging and experiencing them with equal weight and profundity and importance and reality is absolutely fundamental to my life here on this planet as Eleanor Anstruther. So those qualifiers that we've been taught to do, or maybe I just imagined it, or all of those kind of things that we're just relentlessly taught to put away, these childish things, are actually a severance, a cutaway from the essential elements that make life bearable, and that our reality, it is real. This is real. Those 3 realms are real.
That's how I experience life. And as a lecturer in creative writing, my whole I don't think I ever taught anyone anything, but listen to your own voice. Whatever your imagination is telling you, trust it. Um, Forget everything you've ever been taught about writing. Just, it's okay as a writer, whatever comes to you in your own voice, not that right grammar voice that your teacher taught you, but your voice. Use it, use it, use it. And through retirement, which came about because I was ill, so I could get out of working sooner. And not that I particularly wanted to get out of working. I liked working. I didn't like what was going on in the institution. The rules were getting a bit silly.
Do you just let everyone know? I know what you did, but can you just let everyone else know?
I was a lecturer in creative writing at at Buckingham University. I don't want to get sued. But I had a very unusual role there in that I had my own department and I was the creative writing lecturer. So I had my own room and I had the most magnificent boss, Professor John Drew, who I never understood at all because he is the world expert in Dickens and I'm not a fan of Dickens. And every sentence he spoke was, peppered with Dickensian quotes. However, he just let me get on with it. And we did magnificent creative things, particularly while Anthony Selden was the Vice Chancellor, a magnificent man who's big into creativity and being as happy as you possibly can be in given circumstances. So we had amazing grounds to work in with lawns going down to the river and ancient buildings with little doors where there were Bibles hidden inside and secret notes. So we could really immerse ourselves in the creative world. Loved it. It was the best job I ever had. Of course, the man changed. And after lockdown, when Anthony Selden left during lockdown, I went back out into that world and it was quite austere. I was in a big room with a plastic board and the kids were all quite traumatized. Kids, the young adults, after being locked down and not being able to speak to anyone, it was quite difficult to enable people to find voice again. But yeah, it was a great job. I loved it. And I still love working with people one-to-one who are working on their own projects, although I make no claim to have any connection with publishers or that world.
And just again, to use the word reckoning, have you finished reckoning that experience, the sepsis, hanger, 3-week coma, death experience?
Yes, but no. It's aged me rapidly. So I'm 10 years older than I was before, and I resist that like with great resistance. I find it very difficult to accept that it's left me with a depleted vat of energy. I've always had too much energy in a sense. I don't know if you can have too much, but people are always saying, "Oh, I don't know how you can do so much," but I can't do that now. So if I spend a day behaving like me in the old days, I might then spend 3 days lying down. So I don't like that. I haven't quite accepted this different motor that's driving me. The motor inside has changed. And if I ignore it, I get all tangled up with arthritis and that hurts, pain. And yeah.
Go on.
So the reckoning is going on.
And are you aware that all of those changes are a direct result of the sepsis as opposed to just the aging process, or you're not?
No, I think it's partly the aging process. I noticed that when all my friends come round I've had to stop them talking. I did have an egg timer for a while. It was called the Organ Title Egg Timer. And I said they could have 2 goes of that to talk about their ailments and their appointments. And then I went, well, fuck that. You're absolutely useless. You won't stop. So now we read plays. So they come round and they talk to each other, on the way in about their hospital appointments and all the things that are dropping off and going wrong and their pacemakers are going too fast or too slow. And when they've done that, we huddle round. I've got a fantastic big room upstairs in this up and down house, which I'd have to move out if they didn't come. So we read plays. last week we read Giant, Mark Rosenblatt's examination of Roald Dahl's racist anti-Semitism
Wow, fascinating.
moment. It's on at the Pinter Theatre at the moment, if anyone wants to see it.
I do want to go. Okay, I'll make a note of that.
Although it's very expensive unless you stand up.
I'm not
Go,
standing. I'm not
go.
standing. I don't know why it's just popped into my head, but everybody who's listening, I was just chatting with Vicky Leslie before we came on, who wrote a movie called The Atom, and I saw The Atom, a love story. Vicky, sorry, I've got that name wrong. It's brilliant. It's on Netflix. It's about the atom. It's about the atom bomb and our kind of engagement, love affair relationship to it. But she pointed out today, which I hadn't realized, and she'd just realized, it is 80 years today of Hiroshima.
It's Hiroshima Day, 80 years.
Hiroshima Day.
Yeah.
So if everybody listening, if you felt like lighting a candle for Hiroshima, well,
We can, and in Milton Keynes, which isn't far from where I live, there's a stone circle outside the pagoda. It's really nice. It's not a circle, it's a spiral. You walk in and out. It's a good way to pay tribute, I think.
good.
I'm enjoying,
Mm.
I don't know how I lost it. I found it last night, but I'm enjoying In Judgment of Others, Eleanor.
Oh,
I absolutely love it. Our conversation here, my rivering book, began when you'd written about if the walls of a psychiatric hospital could speak. Now it's been made into Gigi retirement flats, as has the hospital I worked in as a child. It's my Saturday job. And so I'd written about that hospital that I worked in. And you said, this is a novel, write it. And that was Rivering was born.
yeah.
But
Which I'm so glad. I'm obsessed with psychiatric institutions, as you now can see from reading.
Yeah.
In Judgment of Others.
But In Judgment of Others, it's really vivid in a different way from the way that the scenes of psychiatry in Rivering are.
Yeah, I think the era is different, isn't it? The scenes in Rivering.
I'm in 1971.
Yeah, you're in 1971.
Oh,
Year of
you're
my birth.
2001.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm 12. In Judgment is set in 20. I think I set it in 2017, so it's pre-COVID. But I've had various friends in and out of section. So although I know in America, I was in New York last year, I think, launching it. And somebody pointed out to the Americans, if you say section, they think of C-section. So I have to say committed as well for all the American audience, committed to psychiatric unit. But yeah, friends have been in and out. So I've visited many, many times. And there's something about the smell of those places, the airlock doors, what it feels like airlock doors, and the sort of effort. And you can talk to this a little bit, a lot, I'm sure. They're very, very good people who work within a very, very fucked up, broken system, dealing with people who are collectively in trauma, but are being medicated for good, for better and worse, to get them through a certain period of their time before they'll be released again back out into the community. How long did you work in
A long
where it was?
I mean, it's insane. When I look at it now, the rules just didn't exist. I must have been 15 or coming up to 15. So, 9
So this is pre-Bhagwan.
Pre-Bhagwan. This is I went to the grammar school in Didcot, and that was a bit boring, apart from the art lessons, but exciting, especially when we got the trainee teacher. Anyway,
my equivalent was called Andrew Wincott, my English teacher, and we were all mad about him. Anyway,
I went off to do volunteering at the psychiatric hospital.
As you do.
Ballroom dancing, and it was the most extraordinary eye opener. And the student nurses were putting on a pantomime, and Aladdin had just had a car crash. So they were looking for an Aladdin, and also there were a lot of male student nurses, and I was a very, very pretty 15-year-old. So there I got the part of Aladdin, but then also I started hanging out there all the time. It was a great place. The next year I was Snow White. So I then got a job in the place because I thought I might as well come here after school or at the weekends and work here on the wards. So
what were you doing on the ward? And isn't it incredible that a 15-year-old
yeah,
was allowed to go and work on was it a high security, they were locked in, weren't they? It was a
they were
section.
in.
Yeah.
They put me with the old people first, the old women whose false teeth were all in the same. No dignity whatsoever, no shoes, nothing, nothing, nothing. They were all heavily institutionalized and medicated.
Yeah.
And then later on, they let me go into the therapeutic community. I was 17 then when I went and worked on the therapeutic community. And that was wild because they were experimenting with new ways, thank God, new ways of treating people, not drugging them, getting them to take responsibility for themselves more. But also at 16, I was delivering people to and from the ECT ward. And they had to sort of move in there in their wheelchairs and then watch while they were strapped down. I can't remember which chapter of Rivering describes this, but it's graphic in there. It's like it's engraved on my brain.
I'm sure it is.
And getting it out onto the page. And unfortunately, my best friend's mother was one who was strapped down and later did die by suicide. So, yeah, that was
Was your best friend's mother in that hospital?
She was in that hospital, in and out of that hospital. We frequently used to get a call saying, your mum's got out again and we can't find your dad. Can you go and find her, get her back? She's running up and down the road in a nightie. It was an education, I tell you, if there was anything missing. Maybe this is how I got into Bhagwan, actually, the guru in the real sense, was through these experiments with psychiatry. I ended up going to some radical psychotherapy groups when I was about 17, screaming and shouting all night in counter groups, mad things.
In the hospital, or this was outside of the hospital?
Outside the hospital.
Yeah.
Consultant in charge of the therapeutic community came too. He was excited by my group of friends' interest in radical therapies, which some people were committed afterwards with broke down, just lost their sense of self completely. And that was how we got. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh had recruited every radical therapist from America, Germany, and England to his ashram. So that was how initially we moved into a commune in England without any intention of joining a cult. But 9 months we were all part of the cult.
Although it wouldn't have been called that the word cult was not in
I started calling it a cult in the last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Used to call it my family, my friends, my commune. But actually, we were it's mass coercive control, which is a feature in my life, but on a mass scale.
Yeah.
Mass scale.
Yeah. I mean, in another framing, impressive. It's absolutely extraordinary thing to have pulled off for so long and so many people.
And still now.
Is it?
Still now. So yeah, when my son,
I guess Poona's still up. I went
up and ran. My son was there about 22 years ago, and he said they'd made him buy a cushion and a robe to sit down and watch a video of our master. He'd gone to have a look, find out whatever crazy shit his mother had been into. And he said, the guy actually said in this particular talk he was given, and I remember being there for it, as soon as I die, what he called leave my body, get out here and find another master. Do not make a business of this. Do not make a religion of this. But my God, have they ever. So that's Poona's going strong.
In fact, I did go to Poona. I guess it was 91 or something. I was traveling on a bike all the way around India. And I remember stopping in Poona and going in, you pass, well, back then, 1,000 years ago, but they were under that big sort of flyover motorway thing underneath there.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people all living in boxes and, sort of grimness. And then you go through the gate and it was lawns, it was swans, it was and he was dead by then, but the pyramid was there because obviously in Poona, in Bhagwan language, he's not dead. he that's not recognized, is it? But there's the pyramid where his, I don't know what they call it, his body or whatever it is there. And I remember talking to somebody and them saying, well, if you want to come, you've got to have an HIV test.
Yeah.
And I remember that really sticking in my mind, because I walked out of there and thought, well, fuck you.
Yeah.
That's so prejudiced.
Good for you. Good for you. Was that
Jesus Christ.
time? And there was a friend of mine ran a massive commune in Holland, and they were very, very homophobic and AIDS phobic. They just couldn't
Aphobic.
they
Yeah.
couldn't get over themselves because we were the sex group, religion. You know,
Right.
had to have sex with everyone else. You couldn't say no. But you
Yeah.
said no, there was something really wrong with you. You were
Yeah.
quite so. Yeah, I mean, there were red flags all over the place. When my son was there, about this, it would have been 20 years ago. When are we now? So the beginning of this century. Um, he said he just couldn't believe how corrupt it all was. The money and that contrast between people with no legs starving on a bit of wood outside. Go, please, please, please. And children who've had their arms cut off. So they're beggars. People who were incredibly poor. And then you step through those gates into another.
And even in my mind, I probably technicology, but in my mind, there's a distinct color tonal difference between the outside. In my mind, I remember it as these browns and greys, and then it's like you walk into a kind of, suddenly the lights are turned on. It's like going from black and white to color. It was like I couldn't, and that was, the early 90s. And yeah, I had a lot of friends who were sannyasins back in that decade, the 90s. And I know, sort of very early ecstasy was kind of born in
Right.
Pune.
Yeah. A friend of mine apparently was set to test it. He lived in Australia, Swami and Premda, and they fed it to him every 8 hours during the testing process for a month.
For a month.
For a month, yeah. I'm not saying that made any difference to him. He'd always been off his head. He was a very exciting human being, was Premda. But yeah, they claim, I mean, I've got a book upstairs called On Drugs. I can't remember who compiled it, but there's a chapter in there which claims that there's evacuees from Pune who went all over the world, worked together on developing ecstasy. And of course, we used to dance all night. It was fantastic, but without drugs.
Right.
Ecstasy made the experience we were having drug-free, of dancing all night and then feeling completely at one. Get it in a pill. How lovely and convenient.
You're a powder. Was there a time, despite everything you now know and feel, and the abuse that it really constituted, was there a time when it did meet, however ignorantly, in terms of the greater harm that needing you?
I think so, yeah. It's like it's very easy to talk about divorce in negative terms and forget you married the man in the first place. You couldn't have done anything but be in his company. And that's how it was when I married my first husband. And it's the same with being part of sannyas, was I really believed I believed the line, I'd been born now for this, and that together we would change the world. And I felt completely at one with the people of my community, especially in England when we first started our commune, before we went orange, actually. There was such a sense that we were together in this, that we had each other's backs 100%, that no one would hurt us because we all loved each other so devoutly. And love was our goal. Love, the healing thing, and it still is, of course.
Of course. So you had a commune before sannyasin, or was it a sannyasin commune?
Several of us who were working together in the psychiatric hospital discovered that the man who later became my boyfriend immediately, had some shares, private income. So we wrestled those off him, and he agreed to buy a house in the countryside. His father had died and left him these shares. His mother said she was going to kill herself, but of course she didn't. He sold his shares and bought a farmhouse in North Morton in Oxfordshire, which we all moved into with incredible rules. We nobody had a private bedroom. We were all living in dormitories. You had it was in the style of a therapeutic community, such as those run to get people off heroin in America in Phoenix House. We, we, and we just were experimenting with consciousness, consciousness without drugs, consciousness through, um, dismantling the boundaries, dismantling all these things you and I find so irksome about English society.
Yeah.
But although now I kind of quite appreciate those things because I think they keep us fairly safe.
Again, I think they have their place, or at least there's a curiosity around why they were built and how they can be used helpfully. But to go back to the commune, so I'm not clear. Your boyfriend.
Now we bought the house,
but it wasn't a Sannyasin commune at that point. It was just a bunch of people who'd met because of this type of therapeutic curiosity.
Yeah. We'd all off to do encounter groups together, 48 groups.
How many of you in the commune?
Well, 15 to start with.
Yeah.
Actually, there were 8 of us who moved in on the first day, and then if anyone came round, they got badgered and rat packed into joining us. And they really, people joined us and quite happily. And then we had huge spaces. So we invited people to run residential therapy groups with us in our space. We're famous for being terrible caterers and giving people the most disgusting stuck together rice and awful beans with no money, you see.
Right. But also that wasn't the point of, that's just part of the course, isn't it? It goes with the territory.
Oh, yeah.
This is what year are we in? 1970?
1974.
Right. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cuisine wasn't England's top.
No.
Bread
for the Whole Food shop up the road. I put on about 3 stone. Comfort eating.
Was there an obvious leader of the commune, or did it feel?
With this guy Bremner, who was the one who much later, was the one who they tested ecstasy on. He'd persuaded my friend Barry to spend his money on the house. He'd set up the rules, but then he'd gone to Holland to join Viresh, who was running extraordinary programs for drug addicts. And we called them drug addicts then, not drug addicted people.
Yeah.
And he set the rules, and then he was the one who went orange first, and then came back with under extreme pressure for us all to be orange. Then he went
from the Rajneesh organisation,
and then he went to see Rajneesh, and he came back with a picture of Bodhidharma, who's a god, who's a fierce man, and said, "You must run. You must get Viresh, who was very famous encounter group leader, to come and run a 2-week residential for you people there and have strangers in." So, and
which you did. Did you do that?
Did. And then after that, all of us had gone orange, and all of us gradually disbanded bit by bit by bit by bit. We left poor Barry to sell the house, which he did, and he gave all his money to the ashram in India and ended up in Oregon having to run away from Oregon.
Does he feature in the film? Can we see him in Wild Wild Country?
No, it's not in the film.
Okay. How long were you in the commune in Oxford?
It's very hard to say because I was going backwards and forwards to India.
Okay.
But I also had a brief period when I was living in Milton Keynes and then running the Rajneesh Centre in London for a bit. The meditations, not this whole thing.
Not the whole thing.
I don't know, but finally, it was about 6 years on and off. And then the final year, I was in India.
So by the 80s, you were firmly in Pune?
Yeah. But I went there forever. And then as soon as I got there, I was involved in this whole project to get to America, to get the organisation to America.
And in terms of your parents, how much conversation was had over that decade, mid-70s to mid-80s?
As soon as I came back, my father died, which was rather a shame. But he died. By that point, I'd joined the Central School of Speech and Drama. I was an undergraduate as he was dying. So he was happy about that, and I wasn't orange. The two of them had been very accepting of it, except when one of our friends from the village up the road was arrested carrying heroin into the country and was put in jail. And then they started to get very worried, but they didn't speak to me about that. Then remember,
Do
they
you
had,
understand what Bhagwan was?
I think
Or
so. I think they thought he was I think they thought he was the sort of thing that teenagers got involved with.
it was
My
a phase.
sister told me that my father had been very, very worried and had taken her out for dinner to talk about it. And she'd said, as long as she's out of it by the time she's 30, we'll be all right. But they didn't know that people were being sterilized, and they didn't know that everyone was having sex with everyone else.
Yeah.
They didn't know the real truth of the
The
thing.
real truth of what was going on, nor all the planning for Oregon and
No, they didn't know
and all
any
of the
of that. No.
fascinating. Um,
In
we've
with
got about. Sorry, Carrie. What was it? I couldn't hear what you just.
we sort of my mother and I had a really good relationship in the end because she moved in with me. She died in 2010, but she moved in with me and the kids in 2007.
Mm.
Between us, Rowan and Bonnie were coming and going, my children, but we were all together when she died, and she had a good end.
Good. Were
We
you
had,
with?
oh yeah, we were all with her, and we all had very good connection during that time.
Mm.
Although she still drove me up the wall. Just
Okay, but during that time, being how long was that period of time?
3 years. She met,
Okay.
thinking she was there to help me, but actually she was losing it quite badly. Only vascular dementia. She didn't have Alzheimer's, but and then she had a heart attack and went to bed for 3 years. So
Wow.
quite liked being in bed. She didn't mind.
I can
she,
understand that.
she
So
taught me everything I'd gone to India to learn. You know, I'd come home and go, "Oh, bloody Rose! Oh, bloody hell, I'm photocopying. Oh, sorry. Have you had a good day?" And she'd say, "Yes, darling. Yes. Just look at those flowers. I've been watching them all day." And I
mm.
said, "Oh my God, you've got Zen at last."
all your years in India, and all your mum did was go to bed.
I got Zen in my room.
Yeah. Extraordinary.
But anyway, that's ages ago. I'm now writing Rivering.
Okay, tell us about Rivering because we have 10 minutes for a
Uh,
very strict hour. Tell us all about Rivering and why everybody should read it.
Everybody should read
Look,
Rivering
give it.
and write in and tell me what they want to hear next. I've got myself in a right 2 and 8 with it. I've done exactly what I know I shouldn't have done.
I know exactly what you've done as well. Just before you do that, just tell everybody what's it about. Give us the
What's
elevator pitch.
about coming of age? It's a coming of age story through which young people learn about what it means that there is no such thing as sanity or insanity. And it examines the way in which life is very pretty on the surface, as it is in the Thames Valley, but there's an awful lot of darkness going on underneath, and that we need to accept the shadow side of life. Um,
And it's set, Thames Valley is set at the
it's actually,
and it's set at the institution.
and there are scenes in the institution, which is now a beautiful bijou retirement home, which was Fairmile Hospital. I've not named it, and I've not named the place. Um, we've also got characters there who were the last of their kind, people who'd been born into tithed accommodation in return for working people in the manor. So there's a large examination of class. And
Mm.
protagonist is a middle class girl, funnily enough.
Called, what's her name?
Oh, she's called Poppy,
Okay.
and she gets involved with a lad called John, whose dad's the union man. Whereas Poppy's mother, funnily enough, is a big suck up with Mr. Heath. She's a big fan of Mr. Heath, who was Prime Minister at the time,
Mm.
and actually did visit Reading during that time.
Mm.
So, and it's they're also, the thing is, there are so many lies. Nobody's sure of anybody's parentage. There's so much bribery and so much corruption going on. And I'm just at the point in chapter 18, which is 44,000 words in,
Mm.
really in the soggy uh,
We're in the marshes. We're
thing.
about halfway. We're about halfway through.
When I started, I thought I was going to be very, very Claire Keegan. Oh, do I love that woman.
I love that woman too. In fact, can I just say, I don't know about you, but Foster is my
That's
absolute
my
tip
favourite. It's my
top.
favourite. Funnily enough, I had a weird experience because I read Foster, then I went to see the film The Quiet Girl, which is subtitled. And I was watching the film, I thought, I've seen this film because the book is so visual and the
Mm.
film, like Small Things Like These, is also faithful to the book. She must have had a lot to do with the production.
Well, and also, there's no wriggle room. That's what I love about Claire Keegan. The way she writes, you cannot misinterpret. She's so sparse and so exacting. Not, and what I love about Foster, not a single word could be cut or changed, including the title. The title is the only time that word is used,
Yeah,
Foster, even
yeah,
though it's literally about that. And that's what I love. The title is doing as much heavy lifting as the
yeah.
content, and it's short. I think she is absolutely one of our greatest contemporaries.
Totally agree. Totally. I read Antarctica recently and the
Yeah,
title,
brilliant. My
all
God, the opening story is just
time,
like Jesus Christ.
still. Anytime I think, oh, I might go on a dating site or
I
something.
know. He's
Oh,
like,
no,
Antarctica.
no,
Yeah.
I don't go
But
there.
look, let's go back to Rivering. Let's go back to Rivering. So
Yeah.
we think we're about halfway through. We know what it's about. Poppy, we don't know, but
But
maybe
it
Poppy's
does.
our heroine. Are you writing straight to the page, or have you got a finished draft somewhere in your head?
I've written way ahead because
Great.
I realised on week 3, when I was trying to get them off to Reading Festival, I thought, oh, shit, when was the first Reading Festival? Google, Google, Google. And I thought, right, I've got to be really careful here. So I've also got someone's age wrong last week, but I'm hoping no one notices. Um, so what I'm
We're all going to notice now.
actually doing first draft live, which is dangerous, but people are enjoying it. They seem to enjoy it. Uh, I haven't had anyone saying, write and say, for Christ's sake, stop, uh,
Good.
which is nice.
They do. I mean, literally, people are allowed to not read it. That's the beauty. I think,
Oh, yeah.
it,
Keep saying, my friends keep saying, see them, and they go, oh, I haven't read this week's episode. And I have to go, it's not homework.
it's exactly the homework. It's fine.
Don't
You're
have to.
allowed to read it. You're allowed to not read it. And obviously, if you read it and love it, comment,
But
heart,
even
restack, everything.
better than that, I find the Thursday dumps. I write a bloggy thing on Wednesday. It's Wednesday now. It's Wednesday today, isn't it?
Well,
Um, I'm finding that really fascinating
well,
because,
I love the one you wrote, the last one you wrote, your, 4 a.m. horrors.
oh, yeah, what is love and did I leave the iron on?
Exactly. It's great.
Favorite one. That's my favorite one. But what these things are writing themselves, absolutely. It's
Mhm.
which is what I would say to anyone who wants to write. Just listen. Just
Yeah.
listen in your head because it's
Yeah.
all waiting to be seen, made
Yeah.
permanent and visible in type.
Exactly. And I think that, what the kind of the good thing about writing when the novel isn't finished, but you're getting it out there anyways, if you are stuck, if you've got that frozen sense of I can't begin, well, it is better to just begin, even if you don't have the full novel written. Anyone who's been in any of my classes knows that I relentlessly say finish the damn book. But if you if you're frozen and you simply cannot finish it, but you want to get it out there, then doing what you're doing, just pressing publish.
I
It
think
it
I could do it with my other 5 novels that I've written and got to 60,000 words and stopped and gone, ah, this is awful. I think I'm going to go back. Teaching really stopped me writing. I was so high on the syllabus and teaching students that they had to meet a publisher's brief and how to write a synopsis. That destroys your writing, doesn't it?
It does, and actually, you can always, for the first, like you're getting Rivering out of out on out
Yeah,
of the system. You're getting it out
yeah.
into public sphere. The next time you sit down and write a novel, you'll probably go through that 60,000 moment, that material fatigue, and actually finish it. So, in that sense, writing life is long. There's always the next and the next and the next. And if the first one you just need it to be a dam buster,
Yeah.
which is what Rivering is,
I think it is.
then
It's
use it for that.
me from overthinking everything.
Exactly, which is, obviously death to any first draft. You
Yeah.
can't.
I did
can't.
write, novel, Orange went out in 2011 and I wish it hadn't. But I wrote that as a competition with my students. We decided we'd all stick a Kindle publication out there and see who could sell the most.
Yeah.
Obviously, I sold the most until I went back to work, and then I had to stop pushing it. But
Right.
I look at it,
It's out there in the world.
it's an example of how not to write a novel. It
Okay.
is.
I won't read it then.
That's
Um,
quite good, but after that, it goes to pot.
yeah.
Although,
It's hard. Writing a novel is, anyone who's doing it or trying to do it or thinking about doing it or has done it knows it's really hard start to finish, and it takes us this huge amount of courage and determination, and also just that turning up every day, relentlessly, day after day after day.
I found a side swipe, which was to become a poet. That worked really well. And
Yes, I
published in 2018. I was so pleased because
yeah,
I don't have to write the whole book. I can just get it down in a poem.
right, beautiful. And you've been publishing poetry on your Substack as well, so
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Well, we are just at time,
Yeah.
Cherry.
Thank you so
I knew where this conversation was going to go. This is what I love so much about doing these:
much.
is you just never know where you're going to go. That was fascinating. I didn't know any of that Rajneesh stuff about you, so thank you for sharing all of that.
Right. I'll probably get a load of yes. Thank you for inviting me very much.
Amazing, and thank you as well for sharing that 3-week coma hanger
That's
stuff. That was
that's
really intimate
inside
and
the
beautiful.
guilt on my stack.
Okay, I thought that really made every part of me sit up and listen. Really.
It's quite a thing to be. I'm actually quite conscious of the fact now there might be such a thing as purgatory. In other words, get the heavy lifting done while you're alive. Deal with your issues now. Say what you have to say to everybody now, 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 now. Because you need to do it while you can.
That is a perfect wisdom to leave you on. Thank you, Cherry.
All right. Thank you
No,
so much. And I
my
hope
pleasure.
soon we'll get together and talk
I
some
hope so.
eat.
Yeah, in Oxford or somewhere. Anyway,
Fantastic.
brilliant. All right. Loads of love.
Thanks. Bye for everybody who's listening. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.
Recorded. It's going out recorded, free shipping, if anyone missed it. All right. Loads of
Bye
love.
now. Bye.
Bye. Bye.